My girlfriend sold my console and used the money to buy her ex a gift as a sign of their friendship and reconciliation. I came home from work and saw my PlayStation was gone. I asked my girlfriend where it was. She said she sold it and used the money to buy her ex a watch as a sign of their friendship and reconciliation. That was the moment I realized this relationship was over. My girlfriend and I were friends for a long time before we dated. We met years ago through mutual friends. We hung out in groups and texted sometimes. Then she said she liked me. I liked her too, so we started dating. We talked about rules early on. She said we needed boundaries. She insisted I couldn't talk to my ex anymore. I had an ex I'd message occasionally. My girlfriend said that had to stop. She said it was the most important rule. She also said I couldn't make new female friends. She said it was about respect. I agreed to both rules. I stopped contacting my ex. I didn't talk to other women. She pushed those rules hard. She said they were key to our relationship working. I assumed she'd follow them too. I didn't ask her to confirm it. We kept dating after that. She said she loved me. I said it back. I thought we were on the same page. I didn't know she wasn't following her own rules. I didn't know she was still talking to her ex. That came up later. At first, I trusted her completely. We'd been friends for so long. I didn't think she'd hide anything. She never mentioned her ex back then. I didn't ask about him either. I figured her past was her business. She made it seem like those rules were for both of us. I followed them without question. I didn't text my ex or meet new women. She didn't tell me she was doing the opposite. She didn't say she was meeting new people. She didn't say they were guys. I didn't notice at first. That took time to figure out. In the beginning, I thought everything was fine. She acted like it was. She'd say we were good. I believed her. I didn't check her phone. I didn't ask who she was texting. I didn't think I had to. We'd been together a few months by then. She kept pushing the rules on me. I kept following them. She didn't tell me she was breaking them. I didn't know she was still close to her ex. I didn't know they'd been friends the whole time. She hid that from me. I found out way later. Back then, I thought we had a solid deal. I thought she was as committed as I was. We'd been together a while when I noticed she was meeting new people. She didn't call them friends. She'd say they were just acquaintances. She'd say she ran into them somewhere. It happened more and more. She'd go out and come back talking about someone new. She'd mention a guy she met at the coffee shop. She'd talk about a co-worker she saw after work. I didn't think much of it at first. She made it sound casual. She'd say it was nothing serious. I let it go. She'd insisted I couldn't make new female friends. She'd said it was the most important rule. I followed it. I didn't meet new women. I didn't talk to my ex. I thought she'd stick to that too. She didn't. She kept bringing up these new people. She'd say she saw them by chance. She'd say they just started talking. I started wondering why it was always guys. She never mentioned meeting women. I didn't ask her about it yet. I didn't want to seem jealous. She'd go out more often. She'd leave for a few hours at a time. She'd come back and act like it was normal. She'd say she was running errands. She'd say she was grabbing something quick. I didn't press her for details. She'd get annoyed if I did. She'd say I was overthinking things. I stayed quiet. She kept meeting these people. She'd talk about them for a minute, then drop it. She didn't tell me much. She'd say they were nice. She'd say they had a good conversation. I didn't know who they were. She didn't bring them around. She didn't say how long she'd known them. I started feeling off about it. She'd made such a big deal about me not having female friends. She'd said it was about trust. She'd said it kept our relationship strong. I stuck to that. She didn't act like it applied to her. She kept going out. She kept meeting these guys. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know her ex was one of them yet. That came later. I just knew she was doing something she'd told me not to do. I didn't call her out. I watched it happen. I figured she'd explain herself eventually. She didn't. It just kept going. One day I came home and found her crying. She was sitting on the couch. Her eyes were red. She didn't look up when I walked in. I asked what was wrong. She said a friend had reached out to her. She said she hadn't heard from him in a long time. I didn't know who she meant. I asked who it was. She said it was her ex. She said he disappeared on her years ago. She said he left without telling her why. I didn't know much about him before that. She'd never brought him up. She stopped crying while she talked. She said he'd written to her out of nowhere. She said she was happy he did. I didn't understand why it mattered so much. She started packing her bag right after. She grabbed her keys and her jacket. I asked where she was going. She said she was going to meet him. She said she missed him. She said she wanted to know why he'd left back then. I didn't know what to say. She'd made me cut off my ex. She'd said it was the most important rule. I'd done it. I didn't get why she could see hers. She didn't explain. She got mad instead. She said I was controlling her. She said I didn't own her. She said she could see who she wanted. Then she left. She didn't tell me where they were meeting. She didn't say how long she'd be gone. I stayed home. I didn't follow her. I didn't know what was happening. She'd been meeting new people for a while. She'd said they weren't friends. I'd let it slide. This was different. This was her ex. She'd sounded excited about it. She'd packed up fast. She'd walked out without looking back. I sat there thinking about it. She'd insisted I couldn't talk to my ex. She'd said it was about respect. She didn't act like that applied to her. She was gone for hours. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know why she cared so much. She'd hidden him from me before. I didn't know they'd stayed friends. I didn't know what this meant for us. I just waited. She came back late. She didn't say much then. I didn't ask. I knew something had changed. She came home late that night after meeting her ex. She walked in smiling. She said it was great to see him. She said they talked for hours. She said he explained why he'd disappeared years ago. She didn't tell me what he said. She just kept going on about it. She said it felt good to catch up. She said he was the same as she remembered. I didn't say anything. I listened. She acted like it was the best day she'd had in a while. She didn't ask how I felt about it. She didn't bring up her own rules. She told me I couldn't see my ex. She'd said it was the most important thing. I'd followed that. She didn't care. The next day she went out again. She said she was meeting him. She didn't say where. She left early and came back late. It kept happening. She'd go see him almost every day. She'd come home and talk about him. She'd say they went for coffee. She'd say they walked around town. She'd say he was fun to be around. I didn't know what to do. She'd been meeting other people before. She'd said they weren't friends. This was her ex. She didn't hide it now. She didn't call him a friend either. She just said she missed him. She said they were reconnecting. I started disliking it. She'd made me agree to no contact with my ex. She'd said it kept us strong. She wasn't following that. She was spending all her time with him. I didn't say anything at first. I let her keep going. She'd leave in the morning sometimes. She'd stay out past dinner. She'd come back happy. She didn't notice I wasn't. I thought about her rules. I thought about how I'd stuck to them. She hadn't. She was breaking what she'd made me promise. I didn't bring it up yet. She kept seeing him. She kept talking about him. She'd say he was sorry for leaving. She'd say they were good now. I didn't care about his excuses. I cared that she was gone all the time. I cared that she didn't see the problem. She acted like it was fine. She didn't ask me what I thought. She didn't slow down. It went on for weeks. I stayed quiet. I didn't know how to stop it. She kept spending every day with her ex. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to say something. I waited until she got home one night. She walked in talking about him again. I cut her off. I said she needed to stop. I said she'd made me agree to no contact with my ex. I said she'd called it the most important rule. I said she wasn't following it. She looked at me like I was wrong. She said it wasn't the same. She said her ex was different. She said they'd been friends for years. I said she'd hidden that from me. I said she'd insisted on boundaries. I said she was breaking them. She didn't agree. She said I didn't get it. She said he was part of her life. She said she wasn't giving him up. I said it wasn't fair. I said I'd kept my promise. I said she hadn't. She didn't care. She said she could do what she wanted. She said I didn't control her. I didn't know what else to say. She walked away. She kept seeing him after that. I let it go for a while. I didn't bring it up again. Then one day I came home from work. My PlayStation was gone. I looked around the living room. It wasn't there. I checked the bedroom. It wasn't there either. I'd saved up for months to buy it. I used it to relax. I didn't know where it went. I asked her when she got home. She said she sold it. She said she got rid of it that morning. She said she used the money to buy a gift. I asked what she meant. She said it was for a friend. She said it was a sign of their friendship. I asked who. She said it was her ex. She said she bought him a watch. She said it was for their reconciliation. I didn't understand. She'd taken my stuff. She'd sold it without asking. She'd given the money to him. I said it was mine. I said she had no right. She said it didn't matter. She said she wanted to do it. She said he deserved it. I couldn't believe it. She didn't see the problem. She acted like it was fine. I didn't know what to do. It was the last straw. She sold my PlayStation and bought her ex a watch. I couldn't let it go. I told her it was wrong. I said she couldn't take my stuff. I said she couldn't use it for him. She didn't listen. She said it was already done. She said she wasn't sorry. She said he needed the gift. She said it meant a lot to them. I said it meant a lot to me. I said I'd worked hard for it. I said she'd crossed a line. She didn't care. She said I was overreacting. She said it was just a thing. She said their friendship mattered more. I didn't agree. I said she'd broken her own rules. I said she'd hidden him from me. I said she'd spent all her time with him. I said she'd sold my stuff for him. I said it was too much. She didn't argue back. She just shrugged. She said if I didn't like it, I could leave. I thought about it. She'd made me cut off my ex. She'd said it was about trust. She'd done the opposite. She'd kept seeing him. She'd chosen him over me. She'd taken my PlayStation for him. I couldn't stay. I told her we were done. I said I wasn't putting up with it. I said she'd gone too far. She didn't try to stop me. She said fine. She said she didn't need me. She said she'd be okay without me. I packed my stuff that night. I didn't have much there. I took my clothes and my work stuff. I left the next morning. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look at me when I walked out. I moved in with a friend. I didn't talk to her after that. She didn't reach out either. I heard from someone later that she was still with her ex. They said she was happy. They said he liked the watch. I didn't care anymore. I was done with her. She'd made her choice. I'd made mine. I didn't regret leaving. I couldn't trust her. She'd show me who she was. She'd picked him every time. She'd sold my stuff for him. I wasn't going back. It was over. I felt better once I was out. I didn't have to deal with her excuses. I didn't have to watch her leave for him. I was free after I left. I thought about everything. I trusted her because we'd been friends first. I'd followed her rules. I'd cut off my ex. I'd avoided new female friends. She'd said it was the most important thing. She'd said it kept us strong. I believed her. She didn't do the same. She'd met new people. She'd hidden her ex. She'd spent every day with him. She'd sold my PlayStation for him. I didn't see it coming. I thought we had a deal. I thought she cared about me. She didn't. She'd picked him over me every time. I wondered how long she'd been friends with him. I wondered why she'd made those rules. I wondered if she'd ever meant them. I didn't have answers. I didn't need them anymore. I was glad I walked away. I didn't miss her. I missed my PlayStation more. I'd saved up for it. I'd used it after work. She'd taken it without asking. She'd given it to him like it was nothing. I couldn't get it back. I didn't try. I started over instead. I stayed with my friend for a while. I worked my regular job. I saved up again. I didn't date anyone new. I didn't want to. I didn't trust people the same way. She'd changed that. I thought about how she cried that day. I thought about how happy she'd been to see him. I thought about how she left to meet him. I thought about how she talked about him nonstop. I thought about how she'd sold my stuff. I didn't understand her. I didn't want to. I was done figuring her out. I heard she was still with her ex. Someone said they saw them together. Someone said she seemed fine. I didn't care. She wasn't my problem. I'd given her a chance. I'd stuck to her rules. She'd thrown it away. I wasn't mad anymore. I was just done. I didn't talk to her again. I didn't hear from her either. I moved on. I got my own place later. I bought a new console eventually. I didn't let anyone touch it. I didn't make rules with anyone else. I didn't need them. I knew what I'd do differently. I wouldn't ignore the signs. I wouldn't let someone take that much. I wouldn't stay quiet next time I've been out of that relationship for a while. I left after she sold my PlayStation. She'd used the money for her ex. She'd picked him over me. I'd followed her rules. I'd cut off my ex. I'd avoided new female friends. She'd said it was about trust. She'd met new people anyway. She'd hidden her ex from me. She'd spent all her time with him. She'd taken my stuff for him. I ended it. I moved out. I stayed with a friend. I got my own place later. I bought a new console. I don't let anyone near it. I don't talk to her anymore. I don't hear from her either. I heard she's still with him. I don't care. I'm better off without her. I don't trust people the same way now. I don't date anyone. I don't know if I want to. I keep thinking about what happened. I followed her rules. She didn't. She made me agree to boundaries. She broke them. She cried when he reached out. She left to meet him. She talked about him every day. She sold my stuff for him. I didn't see it coming. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know if I should have said something sooner. I don't know if it would have changed anything. I don't know how to spot that again. I don't want it to happen twice. I've got my life back together. I work. I game. I hang out with friends. I don't make rules with anyone. I don't know if I should. I don't know what's fair to ask. I don't know how to trust someone new. I don't know if I'd see the signs. I don't know if I'd stay quiet again. I'm asking you guys for advice. What do I do now? How do I move forward? Should I date again? Should I set rules next time? Should I just let it go? How do I know someone won't pull this crap again? How do I trust after she did that? Should I have confronted her earlier? Would it have mattered? What would you have done? I want to hear what you think. I want to figure this out. I don't want to mess up again. I don't want to lose more than a PlayStation next time. Tell me what you'd do.